All right, guys, we are back hanging out again on Pangburn. Twitch.tv/the Pangburn. If you're watching this on YouTube, that's how you can watch these live for the time being. Once we get the monetization reinstated on the YouTube channel for Pangburn, we will start live streaming these again. But for now, we're live streaming on Twitch. So again, that's twitch.tv/the Pangburn. And you can watch these live if you wish, but we will continue to upload these on YouTube afterwards. Mondays are now our psychology days. And one of our Pangburn skeptics, Alexander, is our kind of our resident psychology guy now. It's his field of study, so we're really lucky to have them. How's it going today, Alex?
Going pretty well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Doing good. Just chilling on a Monday, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Much the same. Working on some different things, but it's also a Monday, so it's a little slow.
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, right off the bat here, I'm sure you have some things you want to talk about, but like the psychology of the United States of America.
Oh gosh.
It's I worry about, like, right now, a lot of people are having this existential crisis. I'm noticing people's attitudes on social media, even the ones who tend to be the kind of the promoters of positive thinking and glass half full type attitudes. I'm seeing some of that slip, especially with, this catastrophic feeling that something like Donald Trump being banned from Twitter is that somehow something that must lead to some feeling like you are combining that, put yourself in the shoes of a staunch Trump supporter, combining that with the COVID-19 plus some conspiratorial thinking someone might have about the COVID-19 vaccine. This is a lot weighing on the psychology of the populace right now.
Absolutely. And I guess if we're talking about psychology of a nation kind of thing, I think I've said this on previous chats, but I often will come at things from kind of an existential psychology kind of point of view. And, in that realm, they usually talk about four things being, death, isolation, freedom, and meaning. And right. I think of those because really all of that is kind of going on right now. When you talk about people having to stay at home, or, the things that are happening on social media or based on the way people vote, there seems to be this crisis of personal freedom. And of course, everyone's isolated, and, COVID, obviously there's a life and death component there, specific to certain groups maybe.
Yes.
But, all of this is happening at the same time, that if you don't know how to deal with it, or you don't know how to separate it, and no fault to anyone who might not, it really does become a crisis.
Well, and talking about death for a second, even if you aren't the age 65 plus, it's the looming death of, or the looming potential death of relationship. This
right,
shouldn't
absolutely.
be, discounted. It's like, if you're not walking around in fear of contracting COVID-19 and then dying because of it, you may be afraid of being the one to pass it on to someone who does die of it, especially a loved one. But there's also this drive within you to want to be close to others when you're feeling like you're in that impending doom catastrophe.
Yeah. Well, and I think these things blend too, not just the actual death of a person, but death of a way of life. I mean, people are unable to do a lot of the things they typically do. And depending on where you line up politically, you might feel there's some kind of death to your way of life in that sphere.
Right.
And so all these different kinds of things just they bleed over, especially. I mean, loneliness is loneliness, but people can perceive it like a loss.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting in the war of ideas right now? I'm not going to mention names, but I see some very staunch, strong thinkers that need to be thinking out loud right now, kind of buttoning up and throwing out these very poetic notions about the times that we are in and how, it's getting difficult. And I think that is having a profound effect on the followers. It's like this. It's almost like people are buying into the worry and panic. Like there was a level of resistance against the worry and panic, but some people are just almost starting to believe that it was warranted, which I think is very dangerous. I think anytime people start thinking like panic or worry is warranted, or even something, or even a subtle insidious version of that, like err on the side of caution. Sounds great, doesn't it? Well, it doesn't sound so great when you err on the side of caution, and that extra little bit you've erred on the side of caution gives you a very significant uptick in suicide rates.
Right. Well, and I think there's a combination to that of, some sense of complacency that people don't speak out more, or just kind of go, well, this is the way it is now. And also, I do think there is some, I guess, version of cognitive dissonance, you could call it, that people have to justify for themselves the kind of life that they're living. And for some people, their justification is, well, this is all for something. This is all meant to protect something.
Right.
And it makes you feel good in the moment when you're like, why am I doing what I'm doing? But then over time, as you see more of the fallout, hopefully people kind of wake up and go, why did I let that go?
You know what's crazy about this? It's like in our modern history, at least in my lifetime, in the West, at least, the need for artistic inspiration, and scientific inspiration, the need to be, and I think that's at an all-time high. This need, people need to feel inspired. They need to feel like they can overcome this existential dread. And I think humanity is getting caught with their pants down, at least in the West, a little bit, because we have relied too much of the inspiration we pull, the scientific and artistic inspiration we pull from our environment. We rely too much on each other. I really think that. I think we rely too much, and I know we are social apes, but I think what's being shown is we rely too much on our social interaction to inspire us. And obviously when our social interactions get mitigated due to something like COVID-19, the creative abstract thinkers, which is it really is a tiny section of society. I think that they get along just fine in stuff like this, because their creativity paves the way for so many other ways for them to become inspired. But that's not the majority of society. So I think there are so many lessons being learned at how we have to build the mind to be able to sustain trauma and dread especially when you don't have others to rely on. I think we need to focus more on building the self in this scientific and artistic inspirational way, so that you, for instance, so you'll better deal with if a relationship comes to an end, or if you lose a loved one. Like, I think there is a software upgrade to be had here that you know, sitting on the shoulders of giants, we actually do have access to, but it's got to be put into practice.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I like, one of the ways I've kind of seen this is if you look at, movies and theaters or different bands creating music, or even like YouTube videos or something like that, the people that make those things are still making those things or making art in some way for themselves. But only some of those have figured out a way to disseminate it. And it depends on if that's important to them. Like some movies have gone on the streaming services, but some aren't, and they're holding out, kind of thing. And to your point about us relying on the external, a lot of people are really reliant on having those artistic resources, and you're putting all the burden on those. And I'm, for what it is, you're putting all the burden on those creators to not only continue to create for themselves, which they need to do personally, but to create for you and find a creative way to get it to you. Okay, fine, but you could just create something for yourself too.
Right.
It doesn't just have to be their efforts because they're more public about it.
Right. Yeah. Well, what did you come in today? What did you want to talk about?
I didn't really have anything in particular.
Specific?
I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, nothing specific. I guess if I had to pick anything, and I thought about this a little bit over the past day, is just and we kind of ended up starting talking about it anyway, the value of personal psychology or personal mental health, having self-understanding, having, some understanding of psychological principles, that people can take ownership for their own thoughts, their own actions, and not rely on other people, or even as someone in the mental health field, not relying on someone like me to solve your problems for you.
Right. Endowing people, educating them with the tools, where, seeking escape from, a depressive episode or something like that can be done within your own tool bank, perhaps.
Yeah, certainly. And even so, I think I forget who it was I had a conversation about this with a couple months back. Might have been Dao Su, but I don't know. It was regarding, things like exercise and healthy eating and, coping skills and things like that can go a long way for mental health. And even if you're still having problems after you do all those things, you're coming in way better off than where you would have been had you not done all those easy things on your own.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, because right away I think about the urge that many feel to think extremist about these things. Like, if you don't completely eradicate the thing, the brain bug that you're dealing with, they think that it's a lost cause or a failure because it's not the absolute antidote. And I think that's in my conversations I've had with a lot of people that suffer from, clinical depression or just severe bouts of depression, or anxiety or panic disorder, bipolar disorder. Sometimes I hear that thinking present, where it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I would have to exercise every day in order to feel well. And then I'm like, well, great. Mm-hmm. It's like if those endorphin release, if that dopamine, endorphin, all the juicy chemicals that you get from doing that, and I mean, exercise is going to lead to better sex and more potent sex and all kinds of things. So I think it's a hard thing to ask someone who's experiencing clinical depression to get up and move and allow your body to give you some of that relief. But I think it starts with making sure that their artistic and scientific inspirational meters are allowing them to lift them off the couch, because it's one thing for someone to sit there and say, well, just get up, you can do it, get up. It's like, okay, that might work a few times if they're there to force you to get up, but really what I want is, someone becomes just almost addicted to starting to learn the guitar or something, or addicted to exploring nature, and they can't help but be out in the woods all the time, moving around and exploring nature. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I'm talking about inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other, I guess, a piece to what you're saying, and then I want to give Casually a chance too, but
Yeah.
like, you have to be internally motivated, and sometimes it takes external motivation to do that. Like you said,
For sure.
sometimes just someone's asking you to do it, get up and do it, it starts with that. Or maybe, while you're working out, you listen to a song that you like, or you start writing notes for your novel, whatever it might be. But over time, if you play with that external a little bit, it can become internal. But people have to do that part of the process. I wouldn't say to anyone that they have to force themselves to have all this internal motivation off the bat. I don't expect that for anyone. I
Right.
can't even expect that for myself. But you have to, within your first week or 2 weeks of starting any habit, you have to start trying to build some of that. Otherwise, I mean, that's actually the foundation. It's not the working out or the eating healthy or the whatever. It's the thing that's actually motivating you that's far more important.
Right. Yeah.
Casually, at least that's the name I'm seeing.
Yeah, me too.
Hey Alex, it's Regen. Do you remember me from?
Oh, Srijan. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, hi.
I think Srijan changes his name every 5 minutes on here.
Oh no, it's actually 4. 5.
Love it.
Well, hi, Srijan. I do remember you. I just didn't know that you changed your name.
Yeah, and I remember that you look like Edward Snowden. He really does. You should see his face. He really does look like Edward Snowden.
He does. I remember someone, I think we were talking in a town hall episode, and someone dropped an image, and I was like, we are in the presence of a famous man.
The resemblance is uncanny.
Yeah.
Well, with the pandemic, everything's kind of grown out, so it's really verging more on like a highway homeless man than it is Snowden at this point.
That's awesome. So, Srijan, I'm sure you caught some of what we were talking about. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, interestingly, I really like the part about creativity in the pandemic. And what I think, to be honest, is that um, there are also extroverted or even ambiverted creative geniuses. If there are introverted geniuses like Tesla and mm, uh, like Einstein, maybe. I don't know if Einstein, but Tesla was a hard introvert. He died alone in a hotel room.
Right.
So but like half of the uh, more than half of the people may be introverts, but a minority of the people are also ambiverts and extroverts. So they too have lost their creative geniuses. Like consider someone like Bertrand Russell, right? Who said that he had his best insights when he was out in nature.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consider G.H. Hardy, who said the same thing, but quite a bit differently. Consider Littlewood, G.H. Hardy's, so like these geniuses that they have to go outside. Or consider if you have seen the movie The Beautiful Mind, where you have uh, Russell Crowe playing the character. I forgot his
Mhm.
name, the mathematician, right?
Yeah.
So he was an ambivert, right? So and he had these insights while in nature. Einstein had his E is equal to mc square while he was watching a construction site at a glance at a window. So the point I'm trying to make is that creative genius might have in fact fallen in this pandemic rather than rose, because people are going out less, people are interacting with nature less, and I believe nature is a big part of your creative genius. You know,
Yeah, and I think there are many ways to connect with nature. A lot of those past geniuses that you bring up didn't have the benefits of being able to pull up a BBC documentary on the cuttlefish, you know. But those scientific inspirational elements that you're talking about, which is what I what I think nature is. I think we are so lucky at this point in history that we are able to experience different. Oh, I'm gonna trap this guy's stuff here.
I think the point I'm trying to make is that there are some elements in nature that cannot be virtually replaced or reenacted as another. Like you cannot have a nighty sky in Norway, yeah, uh, and then you cannot see that on the television and feel the same way. You might feel good. It
Sure.
feels very good on the television, but it will not feel the same way when you
Yeah.
look at it in reality.
Right.
So I'm saying that there are some things, not all, but some things that cannot be replaced, like a basic waterfall.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I
it's
mean,
so beautiful.
the obvious example too is human on human contact, not just the 14 million
Physical
Zoom
contact.
call. Yeah, definitely.
Uh, It, yeah, I think kind of to the point you're making, Sri John, is that I mean, people are always going to get more psychological benefit from something by doing it themselves than just watching other people do it. Um, I mean, if you can't do it yourselves, I guess watching it is a good enough uh, uh, substitute.
Beginner
But
step.
yeah, but personal, artistic something is definitely the way to go.
Well, I think that this is where I talk about, taking in your favorite Netflix series and listening to music is going to fill up your artistic and sometimes cross contamination to the scientific inspirational meters to a certain level, but putting into practice to where I think the people that artistically and scientifically enlightened are at, like the Joe Rogans of the world.
Well, and I would respond to that with like a good starting place because I took a writing class in college, and
Mm.
one of the exercises my professor had us do was to take a scene from a film or TV show like and parody it. So write something that's similar but change something about the dialogue or the characters or the situation to suit your own interests. And I thought it was a good intro exercise because it's, you know, really what that taught me, and he didn't describe it very well, but what I took away from it was taking inspiration from things that resonate with you, but then making your own art out of it. And when it's
Yeah.
hard to start, you can do something like a parody because then you don't have to be too individually creative if you're feeling uncertain, but you can kind of play. And the more you do that, the more you're going to get better. You're going to start creating things of your own that don't come from that don't aren't parodies, but pull the inspiration in more subtle ways.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. And I bring that up like genuinely creative and abstract thinking people like to a high degree are very rare in society, so it sometimes is too much to ask someone to write their own original piece of whatever, but you bring up a really good point about standing on the shoulders of giants is what art is all about, man. for most people. It's like we don't get a lot of original pieces. Like it takes a genius like Shakespeare, who was a barometer of humanity, to come up with original shit. Like it doesn't happen all the time. The Einsteins, like these, and then, you know, if you like a lot of these mechanisms that Shakespeare created to describe humanity, they're just, you know, almost every show these days that you see are ripoffs of those situations. So it's pretty it's pretty amazing that you know, when you look at art, we have a lot of versions of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And that's its own topic that I not really rabbit hole to get into now, I suppose.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like the whole question of like, you know, remakes and spin-offs and like you know, redo versions of things. It's like, you know, shoulders of giants, but also let's be different.
Let's strive for, but you know, it's crazy that everyone kind of shares your opinion on that, Alex, where it's like, come on, can't we do something different? But it does take a very special person to come along, and it just shows like the how hard that creative thinking, like true creative thinking, is not. It's not an easy thing that comes along very often. Like a Samuel Beckett or something like that. It's just so it's fucking rare.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's a novel goal to want to breach new horizons and try out new concepts in art and in science, and you know, it's a big part of the scientific method and work as well, like Einstein showed us.
Hey, Dal. So you popped in, so I wanted to say hi. Or maybe you can't hear us.
Dal is dead. Okay, I got this. I took this guy's queen. I trapped him. So, ooh. Trav likey. There we go. Yeah, Dal, what's up, man? We can't hear you. Maybe he's typing in the comments up here.
Perhaps I will have to go check. Would it be?
Oh, I don't think he is.
Looks like he has the deaf on, so he might not even be able to hear us.
Yeah. Have you seen an uptick in clientele that you can kind of correlate to being part of the pandemic?
Well, I will say not so much recently, because I've been off from client work for a few weeks with the break, but back in you know, mid to late 2020, yes, definitely. You know, a lot of people coming in for things that, you know, just depressed or anxiety or whatever, and maybe they would have come in eventually anyway. But in a lot of cases, I do think the pandemic made things worse. A lot of people talking about limited connection with family, people talking about job loss, and I do a group for people who have lost someone due to suicide.
Right.
And the number of new members to that group has been higher than it's ever been.
Oh, it's so tragic, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do we have you now, Dal? Sorry, Alex.
No, you're fine. No, please. Oh, we were just seeing if we had you, because you were here before and then we couldn't hear you, so we were just seeing if you were here.
Yeah, I'm doing other stuff, so I'll be
gotcha.
myself and stuff like that.
Cool.
No problem.
I did want to mention evolutionary psychology while I was, if I could get that topic rolling.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
I don't really know much about it, but I think that a lot about psychology, I guess, derived or hinted at just based on the evolution of species as we are, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. And there's a lot of good information out there on evolutionary psychology. I'm not particularly an expert in it. I've had some educational training on it. I can throw up some names and information in the chat. But certainly it's one of the, I would say, growing fields of the past 30-ish, 30 to 40 maybe years in psychology of people looking more at the evolutionary stuff. Because we just didn't have people, it's hard to get access to that information in the first place, frankly. And beyond that, a lot of it's speculation, like how would this have played out over the span of history. And there's a lot of great theories that I think are probably correct. But, I think I think it's probably the field that evolutionary psychology doesn't get brought up as much as some other things because so much of it tends toward the speculative. But I think it's a great point, and I think we should talk about it more.
Yeah. Well, I've had who's kind of someone who's very well. I guess Peterson talks a fair amount about that.
Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, Dawkins touches on some speculation as well. But again, like you said, it's a difficult field to wrap your head around. It's very speculative, and yeah, it's different than kind of measuring the stuff left over, the carcasses and bones, and it's just a lot different. Unfortunately, we don't have the brain matter to measure and to make inferences based on that. Although we do have, the size of the skull, and we can have some ideas on at least what those brains may have looked like and how they likely would have functioned, but trying to fit in the ideological concepts of the time and how their effect on psychology, that part gets quite difficult.
Well, and I think it also depends on what subfield, so to speak, you're talking about, because we could talk about evolution from the more clinical, how we operate practically perspective, but then there's also the how does the brain work, how does cognition operate, more research-based perspective, and that tends to be where a lot of the effort goes, particularly in things like evolutionary psychology, because we can look at, well, this is how monkey brain works, so maybe that's why human brain. It's a lot harder to go, well, this was a practical means of behavior at this time, because then you're almost getting into sociology a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it all depends what claim one wants to make about some evidence that we've stumbled upon, and is there anything else to substantiate that claim? So yeah, it's a what do I want to do here? I'm playing chess while I'm chatting with you guys. We got some
That's okay.
newbies in the room.
We have Kiss My Ass.
Kiss My Ass has arrived.
It's Miss Region again.
Oh gosh. All right, Kiss My Ass. Any knowledge or thoughts on evolutionary psychology?
Well,
it skipped a beat with Srijan.
to be honest, at this point, I really don't know. I've only read one book of Dawkins. I've read half of 12 Rules for Life. I don't know much about psychology. I just know this thing about evolution. Psychology, interestingly, I watched 2 video essays about Joker today, which were really quite interesting. Why the critics hated Joker.
Oh, okay.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and the problem was that Joker got a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes, while Cutie's got an 86.
See, but I tend to be speculative. No, skeptical. Thank you. Of these days of those things, like what critics say versus what audiences say. I'm like, I don't
Right.
know how I feel about the critics anymore.
Yeah. Everyone's their own individual critic and also confirmation bias seeker. So if they find a critic that writes what they felt about the film, they'll be like, yeah, see, I was right. Yeah. The realm of critique in art is a very interesting bout in human psychology.
It's really a problem too, with these DC movies like Wonder Woman 84. I watched it. It was so bad. It was really bad. There were a couple sitting beside me. I wanted to punch them in the face. I really had anger issues right there. I, it was it was so bad. And the problem was the girl was like, "Oh my God, wow, wow, what a lovely scene that is." I was like, "Bitch, please." It's like I'm a, I'm a big DC fan, so I like Wonder Woman 1, but they really sucked Wonder Woman 84. Like what Wonder Woman, yeah, yeah, in the Batman versus Superman, she's fighting Doomsday, yeah, and she almost beat him, yeah, and now guess who beat Wonder Woman? Wind, wind,
Vind.
literal wind, air. Nitrogen and oxygen that beat Wonder Woman. That was and like really with these Batman movies too, they think like they can put a dark character with no backstory and we'll all be like wow. But these characters, Batman, Joker, they really have they really have to have these psychological depths about them. Like
Mm.
like Batman has a his parents got killed. He trained really hard. Joker, his if you follow his comic book, then his pregnant wife got murdered. Then it's such a great such deep characters, and then you have directors like Patty Jenkins, and Zack Snyder is not that bad, but he really pissed off Batman for me. You know, what they do is like they don't love the character; they just want to earn some bucks. So they shit at it. Like Justice League was literal shit. Like no. The problem with Justice League was, you see, you have seven new superheroes with no knowledge of why they became this, why they like Batman. What does Batman do? He just cracks two or three jokes. Yeah, that's not Batman. That's not the psychology of Batman.
This has
You
been the
know,
BBC look at the mind of Srijan.
No, but so I'm not super
Jared
into
Leto's
the.
Joker. He has just
I'm
he literal just tattoos upon him, and people will think like Joker was so successful because it portrayed something that was real in this world, like the media. Like the media hated the Joker and said that it was it might incite violence and some stuff like that. Yeah, while Joker said that the media places things into one face and does not show all the sides, and media literally did that while criticizing Joker. You know, it's so hypocritical about this everything.
Yeah.
well, I think there's a lot to what you're saying, Srijan, and I don't really know the superhero movies too well, and I haven't seen most of the ones that you're talking about. But
Well, I
uh,
won't quantum Snowden to be a Marvel fan or DC fan.
What were you saying there, Alex?
oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, I haven't seen most of these, but I think there's a lot to it. Certainly, there's a financial piece and trying to compete with Marvel and stuff like that. But I'm really interested in the point you made about Wonder Woman getting beaten by wind, and I don't know the reason for that in the context of the film, but I do think there's a big problem that some superhero movies I've seen have had it, and other films, just general films, have had. Like, you create a character with all of these powerful skills or assets or abilities, and when you don't create a villain that can meet them at that level and appropriately challenge the character you've already created, you have to end up dumbing things down, and it doesn't work.
Interesting.
Yeah, and like literally, like consider Superman who kills people now. Yeah, in Man of Steel, he right? You had Wonder Woman in 2017. They loved it. They loved Patty Jenkins, right? They were praising her. Now it's shitting, so they're shitting on her. Yeah, and now she has a problem with shitting on her, but she didn't have a problem when we were praising her. Yeah, so that's really hypocritical. They need to learn to how to take the criticism. There is a like who the hell what they did. They showed Trump as the bad guy, and they were portraying Trump as being the bad guy in 84, Wonder Woman WW 84. They
What?
they showed, yeah, no, like uh the main villain of that movie, yeah, he is supposed to be a fragment of Trump, right? The last scene that happens, he so
Oh,
yeah, so the last scene happens in the White House. Some I don't know. He's giving a speech in the White House or something like that, right? Not Trump, but the main villain. And like it's yeah. Consider this, right? Gal Gadot in June she tweeted she wanted everybody to go home and stay safe. Yeah, don't go to the movies. There's still time. Yeah, June or July, I think. Yeah, now she in December. Yeah, she tweeted everybody, please go see my movie. Give me my money. Yeah, yeah. Please watch it on HBO Max. Yeah, please go to the
mm,
theaters. Yeah, please give me my money. Just give me my money. You can watch it on HBO Max if you're a pussy. She literally said that on her tweet.
oh
Yeah.
Alex, I have a question for you. How do you respond to people when they say something along the lines of psychology is not science?
oh well, I haven't heard that one. That just pisses me off.
Yeah, me too.
It's like,
Because
I stand by that.
you what?
I watched a video of Feynman saying social sciences are not sciences, and I think I kind of stand by that because they don't exactly follow what science, but you know, science has been so much ripped apart at this moment. Like it's like a liquid; anybody takes it as they please, right? So social scientists they follow the scientific method and all that, but they really don't. They really don't. Science is what? Science is applied math, and you need
Well,
math for science.
not necessarily though, because science goes through different discovery stages. You can build a scientific model around anything, and it's still science.
well, even so, if we were using math as a distinction, and I wouldn't, the social sciences use plenty of math, and I mean, everything we know in psychological research, and some topics of psychology are very hard to research. I will grant
Yeah.
that. Everything we know of psychological research has mathematical components to it. In the course of my education to do what I do, I've had to take 4 or 5 statistics classes among all the basic general math that anyone has to do. And there's a lot of things that we note in terms of mathematical phenomena. One of my favorite facts, just because I think it's cool, if you do the thing where you have like a rat and they have the thing where they put their nose in the little hole and they get the brain stimulation, they feel great kind of thing. Um, they will tend to do that along a normal curve. So there's a certain amount that a majority of rats will do it, and then it follows the rest in normal distribution. If we didn't use math and psychology, we would have no reason to know that or know why that's relevant to the way dopamine works. Um,
Right.
so in that
Yeah,
sphere, we absolutely use science
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah, I think it's this. It's true that there are And this is where people get confused. Just because there are people proclaiming to do science, it doesn't mean they are doing science. So if you have a social science scientist taking a sample size of 10, let's just say 10 transgender people who have had this particular transgender experience, and then claim that this is now demonstrable of all transgenders, that's not science. You need a larger sample size to demonstrate whatever. What people should be doing is willing to make claims of, okay, that is too much. That sample size does not demonstrate what you think it demonstrates. And I think you do find that in the social sciences, especially in the more far left, liberal type college settings, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
exactly what I'm saying. They
so that's
follow
not
the scientific method.
Yeah. Well,
They follow the scientific method.
if they're following the scientific method, that's fine. And if they're making a claim that out of these 10, we have these proclamations from these people having this experience that X is this. Now, that's fine for them to talk about the scientific data and the research. But the problem comes when they try to draw a vast conclusion about it with not enough demonstration for it to be a general rule, for instance, in this hypothetical for transgender or transgenderism.
So how's that relevant though?
Well, it's relevant because they're doing science, but where they may not be doing science is on their applying their conclusion and then building a whole curriculum around a conclusion that actually isn't substantiated yet.
Yes, that's following the scientific method. Exactly.
No, the conclusion is not following the scientific method. You shouldn't be making claims that haven't been sufficiently demonstrated. That's not science. Like if you claim that, because out of the millions upon millions of transgender people in the world, we did a study on 10 with these experiences. They all had the same experience. Therefore, transgender people in general have this experience. That's not science.
Yeah, but exactly. So they follow that, right?
Well,
I'm saying if they're doing that, they're not doing science. They're doing the process is a scientific process up until they make the strange conclusion that they shouldn't have made.
Yeah, if you boil it down, then the question that really comes is what really makes a subject a scientific subject, right? And so if you have psychology is so like if it is for only following the scientific method science, if that's true,
no, Srijan,
homeopathy is not a science.
They stop following the scientific method on the conclusion. That's just a failure of scientists, not the failure of the scientific method or the scientific method at all.
So what are you saying? I'm just saying that psychology is not a pure science.
Well, there is no version of science. There's no pure and this is a failure of many people talking about science. There is no pure, absolute, minimal version of science. There's just science. Science is science. There is no level to it.
I disagree. I think that you are putting science into a very liquid form that can be stretched at any level whenever you follow the scientific method. And I don't think that's true. Yeah,
it's not putting it into
it's kind of like an opinion thing, right? You can have consider 5 said this about social sciences. They are not really sciences, but they're like he called them pseudosciences. I don't think pseudosciences. I think I don't think they're pure science, but they're not pseudoscience at least. I think you think that nothing is pure science. That's what you think. I think.
Well, there is no such thing as pure. The thing is either science or it's not. There's just there is no scale in which we determine whether something is pure science, actual science, a little bit of science. It's either science or it's not. That's there's just one unifying term for that process of building models based on the evidence of reality.
I think there seems to be a hang up here of what I personally would consider part linguistics, part just the way things practically work. I mean, psychology as a field is understood to be like one of the common definitions among psychologists, is that it is the scientific study of human behavior.
Right.
And what I mean specifically by that is those who say they practice psychology and aren't full of shit, which I would say is most people in the field, would have a certain standard that they understand as what do we consider science based on scientific method and what we don't. If someone goes out just by themselves, they're a random person, and they follow 5 people around and note their behaviors and say, look, I did psychology. Any person with a psychology background would say, that's not science, but good for you. You studied people. So you aimed to do what we do, but you didn't really. It's being able to make that kind of distinction.
Right.
Any good research that you see come out of a place that says they do psychology research, or any person who's practicing psychology in either therapy or other clinical means, would be doing science, and they would have methods to back why they do what they do.
Right.
But there are certainly people that will claim that they're doing psychology when they're not by standard definitions.
Right.
Of course, when we can't weed them all out, we try to, but it's not possible, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of people who will proclaim to be doing science, and their process is correct, but then all of a sudden they due to a complete misunderstanding of skepticism and plausibility, they think that what they have found, like let's say a statistical reality, they'll think what they have found is evidence of their conclusion, when really it hasn't been demonstrated. And this happens all the time with scientists.
Yeah, the topic of psychology, I just completed a book called Influence by, God, I forgot his name already. Some guy hits a book on the psychology of persuasion. He lays down 7, I think, 7 rules of compliances about
Right.
how advertisements make us comply to their wishes. Like I'll just give you an example, a common example. We want what others have, right? So we have a want of what others already have. That's why iPhones are so popular. We don't we if you really compare what an iPhone is, you can get a better phone and plus, yeah, at a cheaper price. Yeah. So people still buy a phone. Why do they buy that phone?
Status.
Well,
Yeah. Well, there's a status.
actually, status, and so the fact that if you take a less like if iPhone is a bit of a luxury example, but if you take a toothpaste, let's say, right? If you are a kid, a 9-year-old kid, you take a toothpaste, right? Yeah, and that toothpaste is suddenly featured on the most watched Disney movie of 9-year-olds, and every 9-year-old has that toothpaste. Yeah. So you, as a 9-year-old kid, would also want toothpaste.
Yeah, that's so that's still, it's still the pleasure drive doing its thing. People will.
Yeah.
The question is, well, why would they want that toothpaste? Well, we are a social ape, and we like to. Yeah, you're right in saying we see other things. We see other things painted up in a advertisement type way, and it hits us, and we see other kids enjoying it, and we're like, oh, I want to try that. That looks really enjoyable, and I don't want to be left out. That's another part of it too. I don't want to miss out. Fear of missing out. FOMO.
Mhm.
Yeah.
in terms of status and the way we look at like those things, we generally want to be at or better than other people. So either with them so that we can have a sense of belonging, or better than them so that we can have a sense of esteem. No one wants to be perceived as less than or inequivalent to their peers, which partially drives that. I think, like you're both saying, it's not really about the thing. Nobody cares about the tooth, whatever it is. It's the fact that other people that I need to live with on a day-to-day basis seem to have or care that I have the magical toothpaste.
Yeah. Well, and another way to put it, the colloquial way to put this, the way we talk about this colloquially, is cool. It's like it's a cool thing, man. I'm doing the cool thing right now. I'm having the cool phone. Well, why is the phone cool? Well, I don't know. I just, it is. It looks cool. It's used by everyone. It seems to be easy to use. Then someone will be like, well, why is this easier to use than the Samsung Galaxy? And then they'll be like, well, I don't know. I just like it more. Okay. It's just cause it's cool. Social apes and a social species is going to come up with things that are cooler than other things that actually have the same function. And other things might even have a better function.
Well, if you went to
you can see it right now.
If you went to the grocery store and you were going to buy cereal, and there were two boxes next to each other, but one of them had a sticker on it that said now with 1% more flavor, you would buy the one with 1% more flavor. There's no noticeable difference, but naturally like the appeal of this is more, this is better, this is bigger, and then that's the kind of thing we go, hey friends, guess what, I have the 1% better cereal.
Yeah. Well, it's like Lucky Charms will do this, right? Lucky Charms, it's like how can you find a more sugary cereal than Lucky Charms? Now we got chocolate Lucky Charms. All the chocolate packed into one bite. Chocolate and candy can't get better than that.
Yeah, it's also about competition, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I was 10, I think, 9 or 10. Right, there was this pen, this pen was like, this was a half a $1 pen, 50-cent pen in dollars, I'm saying, right? So it's nothing really, but for us it was a really big thing, in India back then, like like 35 rupees. That's a really big amount for a kid, So if anybody had a pen, you had to listen to that guy for the whole day. You know, it was like that. And I remember when there was a gold version of that pen, that was 100 rupees. Yeah. So we had like, even for girls, girls would even listen to that guy who had like
through this pandemic. What do you think the children, because they're just kind of going about their business and kind of just going rules, and they'll be creative for the most part under most circumstances, or do you think we're going to have a generation of people who kind of have this void because of what was lost here through even just regular social interaction with peers, I guess?
Yeah, so, and I can't speak to this from a clinical perspective because I don't see kids in that environment, so I don't know about their mental health per se. But I think in general psychology terms, like, I don't think that kids will be hugely affected now. I mean, certainly there will be some effect, but I don't think it'll be anything too awful. What you might see is changes in how things are going forward. Like this time with less social interaction, it might have a negative effect when kids are back in school in person and they have to find ways to relate in that manner. You could see it in terms of, kids will get creative, and kids are better at technology than a lot of adults, especially older adults. So
Right.
I trust that a lot of kids, across the world are finding new ways with technology to communicate with their friends. That's great. But there will come a day where you do have to communicate in person again, and it really is different.
Right.
So there could be ramifications with that. I also worry just about general social, or you could say socio-political ramification of, kids pick up on quite a bit, and they're seeing conflict that is occurring in the country and among
Right.
adults, and maybe their parents are expressing, well, we can't trust the government, or we can't trust that things are clean in different stores.
Right. Right.
And those ramifications of how you relate to other people, or who you trust, or who you're willing to listen to, that could have a very big effect. And that's not even just the pandemic. That is just the way, at least in America where I am, that's the way the country is right now, that parents could be putting a lot of that on their children. If you want to see things get better, teaching them to behave the way you're behaving is not the way to do it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And inevitably, with not having your kids in school, with more parents spending time with their kids at home during the school year, it's putting a lot more pressure on parents.
Oh, absolutely.
I actually have my 6-year-old nephew here right beside me.
Mm.
Hello.
He's been
Hello.
going to school. Hey, how's it going? He's been going to school. How's school been for you, little buddy?
Good.
Good? You guys been distancing?
Not much.
Not much. Oh, no.
Children.
He actually before he went back to school, he would come home, and sometimes he would come over my parents' house, and they would do school on the laptop. It was interesting. They were doing Zoom calls.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
go ahead.
And about chess, this is Clark. I won one round of chess.
Oh, cool. I'm playing chess right now, buddy.
Yeah, and I also beat my dad. My dad won the first round, and I won the second round.
Well, make sure you give your dad a rematch.
Okay, we did 2 rounds.
You get a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
He's gonna be
You got to have the rubber match.
He's been coming over in here, and I've been teaching him how to play games.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Demon games. Like
Yeah.
demons.
He's a little goofball. His little brother, though, is 4, and he keeps coming down here freaking out because he can't play.
This guy just
What a cutie.
Yeah, what a cutie. This guy just gave me his queen. This guy is not a cutie.
When I came out, I didn't come crying because my brother did.
Yeah. All right, Clark.
Thanks
you
for
just
stopping
have
by,
to-
Clark.
No.
We're gonna still be on though. We're gonna still be on.
Good.
Yeah, he's just gonna play games.
I'm
Good.
gonna be playing
Wait,
games like demon games, not chess.
Hey, can I ask you? Is it Clark?
Yeah.
What do you think about this whole
Lois Lane.
virus pandemic?
I hate it.
Yeah, what do you hate about it?
I like to go to school more.
Yeah.
Than going online.
That's a big lie, man.
Next Monday, I'll be not going online, but next Tuesday, back to school in person.
Cool, man.
Good.
Well, it's good that you want to get back to school. What makes you want to get back to school so much?
Yeah.
So it'll be better to learn off the computer. Well, learning off the computer is like the worst because
Yeah.
you can't hear that much and it's echoey. When I'm in the classroom, it's not that echoey.
Yeah.
Everybody pays attention. It's tough to keep an eye because my dad loves to watch a show, and sometimes I like to watch it when I'm on school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get distracted.
Yeah, that's a good
no
point.
TV.
Yeah,
But
let him go. Let him go, Clark.
That's a
Let him
good
talk.
point, Clark. Like that must be hard, much harder when you have to deal with even like the humming, the weird microphone that you have to listen to, and the technology.
I don't wear headphones.
Yeah,
I
Who moved the piece?
I did some online school for a while, and it can be pretty rough. Sometimes people's signal cuts out, or someone's trying to say something, and and then they end up typing it, or they mistype, and it can be hard. There's good things, but there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong.
right.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna head out
All right.
now.
Peace, Jen.
You have a good day, man.
Kiss my ass.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Bye, man.
Oh, what a guy.
Yeah, at least you got to talk.
Yeah.
And I told him my bun was fast.
He's bragging about that all day. Oh, jeez.
Cool.
I'm gonna put my mute on here for myself a bit. I'm gonna keep listening in.
Yeah, cool.
He's gonna be playing games. He'll probably be on here for he'll probably be with me for an hour or maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But, I'll be listening in.
Cool, man.
No problem.
I'll see you in a bit.
Sweet.
Demons.
You might hear the demons. All right. You don't mind if I just stay here muted, right?
No, it's just open to
No.
anything, man.
I'll try to chime in if I can. It's just he's gonna be
Cool.
playing, so
Yeah. Well, thanks for stopping by anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Hey, Alex, just hearing Clark talk about, just the things of it's hard to hear, like the effect of the technology, as opposed to it's just not a hurdle that kids usually have to deal with of trying to strain to hear through microphones or through chat softwares that are being buggy that day or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm sure that one of the perks people were saying early on was probably something like, "Oh, sure, they're online, but now every kid can be in the front of the room." Of course, some kids really don't like that, but
That's quite funny.
I think in many ways, I think Clark was kind of saying with the sound, every kid's in the back of the room.
Yeah.
There really is this barrier, whether it be the actual technology of sound and video quality, or if it's just the impersonal nature of the computer. It is a disadvantage to everyone. I mean, you look at the data across, at least all of America. I don't know about other countries, but performance in school is down overall. Yeah. Kids are not learning better this way, despite the fact that we think, oh, kids understand computers and phones better than most adults do. Sure, that doesn't mean that's how they need to learn.
Right. When it comes to education, man, I'm working on a program that I'm writing that I hope the Canadian government will consider, and it just has to do with, skepticism kind of becoming the not the main focus of knowledge-based study, but just kind of the overarching goal for a student to instill a skeptical foundation. Because if they want to, if everyone really wants an answer to this, how do we make sure people aren't being radicalized by bad ideas online? It's not about canceling and deleting Twitter accounts that you disagree with or that are spewing nonsense. It's about instilling the individual with a solid foundation in skepticism. You cannot hijack the skeptic's mind, like a true skeptic's mind. It can't be hijacked. They're not going to buy bullshit. They're going to separate that bullshit from reality. So, it's I really, really want skepticism to be the focus of our education system, to finally start teaching how to think properly as opposed to what to think. And how do we do that if our teachers don't even know that in general? Well, I think there are simple programs that you can instill that move with students as they go from kindergarten all the way through grade 12. The lessons start getting harder and harder. But every day you have a lesson in skepticism. And it's literally a 15 to 20 minute lesson where you give the students a chance to work on the skeptical problem, let's say the logical problem, and come to the best answer, and to have a final unveiling and discussion. at the end of the session, and all I'm asking is for 15, 20 minutes a day to take, even if you have to minimize the hour-long history lesson down by 15 minutes. And my argument for that, the reason why we can afford to do that, is because we do have the ultimate knowledge bank in our smartphones and in our computers, if only the students have a solid foundation in skepticism. And that's my argument. We can afford to give up some of the knowledge-based teaching time of just, trying to have kids memorize things. Give up some of that time. I love teaching history. I love teaching art. I love teaching it all. But give up some of that time to essentially guarantee that your child will graduate and go into the world with a solid foundation in skepticism. And you can be sure that ideologically they will not be victimized.
Well, when I think of that kind of thing on just pivoting back on psychology a little bit, like, I think skepticism relates really well to the concept in psychology of the fundamental attribution error, which you've probably heard of. I don't know if people who end up listening to this will know, but it basically describes when people look at different situations, it's either dispositional, like this is an attribute of the person, or it's situational, this is a product of the environment. And we tend to look at, if something goes wrong with someone else, it's their fault, they did something wrong. It's not a product of the world they're in. But if we do something wrong, oh, this happened, it's not my fault, kind of thing. And we all have a tendency to do that. But
right.
I think of that a lot, especially when I've had clients and such, because people will come in and they'll say, oh, my sister said this really offensive thing to me yesterday. Okay, well, why did she do that? Well, my sister's just a jerk and she really hates me. And what else does your sister have going on? Oh, well, she's got 9 kids and three family members died yesterday, and also she has pneumonia. It's like, yeah, could that have played a part, at all? Maybe.
Right. And, this is what I'm talking about. The knee-jerk feeling, the knee-jerk allure to the emotional extremes of just situations that would be simply understood with a solid foundation in skepticism.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and I partially think of that when you describe the school thing, because children do that all the time. They make those misattributions constantly, and that's not a critique even so much of their critical thinking skills. It's their kids. That's what they do.
Right.
But as you grow up, you have to learn how to correct yourself and how to make more appropriate attributions. And there's so many people who just don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even that little bit of skepticism introduced at whatever grade or that they can grow up with, I think sounds like it has a much better chance of getting them to be the adults that come in and say, oh my gosh, this thing happened. My sister said this thing. I'm really angry about it, but I get where she's coming from.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man. People sometimes criticize me and be like, well, Trav, it's not so easy as just skepticism. I think people just don't understand the power of it, man. It's literally like a child, a 7-year-old with a solid foundation in skepticism will not be groomed by a pedophile. It runs that deep. Like, I'm talking about a mechanism that provides that safety. And it's yeah, it just I think we need to get on with it. It's like too long have we allowed people to suffer being ill-equipped to deal with ideological predators or grooming, the grooming type predators. And it goes all the way up when you start getting into relationships, and most people have experience of some kind of abuse in some kind of relationship. And, this can all be circumvented and avoided. And it's not a perfect rule to say that. It doesn't mean that someone can't punch you in the face anymore. It just means that you're going to have a better mechanism to deal with those things. So, yeah.
Right. And that's the thing, specifically, like when you talk about the, like these kind of abusive relationships or being groomed for, the pedophilia, etc. It's just having the, part of it is some sense of self-esteem, but part of it is, the self-awareness, and with that skepticism to be like, do I want this? How do I evaluate the situation that I'm in? And being able to consider other options. And I'm thinking less about children, I guess, in this case, more about adults in relationships. But like, you can get yourself in a situation or find whatever you need from another person in a situation that is not this. If you have the mental framework to understand what is available to you,
right,
then you can access your other options. But because I've seen plenty of clients like this where just throughout their lives there have been so many things that they can't even understand there are alternatives, which is a really hard thing to learn at 42.
Yeah, definitely, man.
It's a lot easier to learn at 10.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. And yeah, some people are just like completely just out of their mind when it comes to like, they're like, oh, you're going to teach skepticism to a 5-year-old? What age do you teach a child to wipe their butt? It's literally the most universal example of separating bullshit from reality. We teach the child to check to see if the toilet paper is clean or not. That is when they know their butt is clean, at least clean enough. It's like, it's the most universal thing. We start with it, and the lesson should not stop at wiping your butt. And I know there are other skeptical lessons that we build into child rearing and parenting, but it doesn't need to stop there. It's like we can teach children who are not genuine savants to play the most daring and difficult pieces of Beethoven by the age of 5, 6, 7, by simply just cultivating an environment that lends itself to that, not in an indoctrinated way either. It's just children's capabilities are just they're so underutilized, and I think it comes from worry and fear. People are afraid to throw too much at a kid, but there's a lot of scientific and artistic inspirational elements that children are not getting access to due to, perhaps some level of ignorance on the capabilities of children, or even in sometimes the situation is resources. But this is where creative thinking comes in, where most people can find a really old piano for free and get some friends together and move that piano into your home so your kid can have access to it, right? And then most households are going to have internet access, and you helping your child to understand what the teacher on the free YouTube tutorial on how to learn piano is saying. It's there. We have access to it.
Well, and even more so, like in the skepticism thing, I don't know your curriculum, but I'm going to presume you're not suggesting that 5-year-olds be taught, like, have you considered that you don't actually exist?
Yeah,
kind of thing.
A lot of people go there with it, and then they think that, like, well, Trav, you're expecting everyone to have abstract thinking and critical thinking at age 5. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Skepticism literally is like, checking your teeth in the mirror because you don't necessarily trust. You're questioning and continuing to question your ability to brush your teeth. That is skepticism in motion.
Well, and I think in the psychology way, like nature starts this process for us. I mean,
Right.
one of the first critical skills that kids learn is object permanence, and that's not even something that's really taught to them. They just tend to naturally develop, and that's skepticism that
Right.
this ball was here, now it's not here. Well, I know it didn't disappear,
Yeah.
so who hit it? I mean, that is
Those are the
basic
lessons,
skepticism.
man. That's what I'm talking about. Like, this should be a daily endeavor to get children starting to move down the lines of abstract thinking, to start understanding the scientific method and how we determine what is in reality, and even making inferences into what isn't. And then also have kids start thinking about morality, moral foundations. And I think that's one of the reasons why traditional child rearing and parenting is where it is today, because the religious community does not want children thinking for themselves when it comes to morality, because you will find them throwing out the religious doctrine very quickly. As soon as they start thinking for themselves, and as soon as they add an ounce of separating bullshit from reality, the skeptical method, once that mechanism's running, the children are going to start laughing at these old ideas for the most part. And then also identifying the ones that have kind of stood the test of time, stood the test of all religions. You know, it's a beautiful thing. It's art in motion for me to see the skeptical mechanism working and starting to work within a child, asking the annoying why questions. Why are plants green? How can a plant eat without a mouth? You know, why is the sky blue? Like these classic, inquiries where if the child knows it has a solid foundation of skepticism, they can literally use their knowledge device of infinite knowledge, which is essentially the internet, and escape the bullshit answer of their ancestor. It's a fact. The era of bullshit is over, and again, it kind of was ever since the internet came out. It was no longer the old guy who really didn't know what he was talking about, trying to act like he knew what he was talking about.
And a note to parents on that: when your child asks you the why questions, provide them with a developmentally appropriate answer.
Sure.
But provide them with an answer, and even if that is, well, to be honest, Jimmy, I don't actually know. Let's go look that up, kind of thing. That's perfectly fine. I think, in general, at least my opinion of it, is that your children can respect you more if you honestly just tell them what you don't know and you're willing to learn with them, rather than provide them some bullshit that they'll later find out on their own is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And not only tell them the answer, but show them how you are going through the information. And again, this only works if the parent understands what skepticism is, but show them how you are getting this information. Show them how you are checking to see if this is disputed, if there is any dispute here. Them seeing that in motion is so damn important. Just the how to think as opposed how to think properly as opposed to the what to think is just we haven't got it yet, and a lot of it I think is because you see a lot of traditionalism in ideology crushed by skeptical inquiry of children, which I think is ultimately a good thing. But for social circles and social communities, families, this in some circles is looked at as, let's say it, blasphemous.
Mm-hmm.
What up, Bruce? Bruce came in so hot on the mic, he popped the capsule.
Well, hopefully
Hey,
he comes back.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, there he is.
Good.
Hey.
I don't know what happened there. It somehow Discord chose a random audio device to use for.
Well, I know you're brand new to Discord, so you'll figure it out.
Right. Yeah, that's me. So green. Extremely green on this one.
Oh, how come? Oh,
How's it going?
good, man. We're just
Good.
talking psychology today with Alexander.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How's
Been
how are
interesting
things
times.
how are things going for you? What do you think, Bruce? Tell us about the psychology of the United States of America right now, the collective psychology.
No, I can't make. I hate those general claims. I think they're used for political fodder.
Do you think?
But I think general claims generally, like I think a lot of these claims are to say, especially you hear terms like the community. If I said white community, it would. You know how many people that is?
Yeah, yeah.
That's retarded.
No. So what
It's
I
actually
yeah.
asinine to say that. Like it's done all the time. The sentiment of people's feelings psychologically in the United States is far more complicated, and what we're seeing on Twitter, Facebook, or mainstream is a pimple on the ass of what people feel every day.
I totally agree with you, and that's why that's why.
That's my feeling on it, I guess.
Yeah, and that right there, I think, is why I think it is actually a good question.
Mm-hmm. I just think that a lot of people have their heads down trying to get things done. You've got emotional turmoil related, anything related to COVID in a state that's not open is its own ball of problems.
Yeah.
So politics are of no consequence, I think, for a lot of people, because it really, like anyone that knows anything, if they've lived for 30 years or more, probably they know that the federal politics don't make a huge change in what happens every day, with the exception of these lockdowns. But that's really a state thing.
Right.
So like if you were to, let's just take yourself in the 80s and take yourself in 2020, the way you act from day to day, as far as the feds are concerned, like there really isn't anything different to how you're operating. There's really no, like the only difference is what the internet has brought, which isn't a federal thing. So
Right.
the policies that are created at the federal level, not really affecting people, with the exception of maybe minimum wage law, but that's usually state enforced.
Right.
So like too many people on places like Twitter, Facebook, or otherwise try and make these sweeping statements about how this affects people or how America must feel, I think are way off.
Yeah.
I think,
I would a version of what I think you're kind of saying. I heard someone recently on a political talk show say that, kind of the zeitgeist right now is that, America's on the brink of a social, political, civil war in a certain way. And I would take that a step farther to say that I think that is the public psychology, except that 90% of the public actually isn't participating.
Mm-hmm.
But
yep.
Yeah.
we're all given the message that this is occurring, when everyone individually is like, well, I'm not part of that, but that's horrible.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it only happens when the rubber meets the road is when the problems arise. And the rubber met the road on the lockdown and mask mandates. That truly became a problem. That's a tangible issue that actually affected people. That's different. I think that's why it's dangerous in some ways. Because I can't imagine, like, let's just say that, let's buy the idea that people on the left think that people on the right are idiots. Okay, well, now we've invited more idiots into the political conversation because they've been forced into the political conversation because of the mask mandates and unemployment, etc. So now you're going to have a number of what you would consider uneducated laymen's talking, protesting, worrying about what happens with no context. The only context they have is government's telling me to do this thing. My granddaddy has always been a Republican or a Democrat, and as a result, I'm fighting on the other side. You know what I mean? Or that, the side that I know. And I can't, like, if you're going to take people and say, like, you've got to be unemployed and you've got to wear masks against your will and you've got to socially distance in a circle in the park, if you're going to tell them that, I can't imagine you're going to get a number of liberals voting for that. So it's only going to take a matter of time before people get pissed at establishment liberals. That's how I feel it.
Interesting.
Yeah. I would have to think more on that specific claim, but I do think that everyone has a breaking point, and we're not getting farther away from it.
Oh, sorry. I'm getting paid, so I work. I will be back if I can. Sorry, I'm on call
Yeah,
this
no
week.
worries.
Yeah, go ahead.
See you later.
Well, I'm 3-0 today on the chessboard so far.
Oh, good.
I think this is my best opponent so far here.
Best opponent because they're good, or best because they're actually dumb?
I think they are good.
Oh, good.
Now, here's this is an interesting situation. Do I put the pressure on their... Well, me. See, I could go...
Oh. Oh, wait.
I'm gonna go...
In the lull, I'm trying to think if this goes again next week, what would be a good topic to set up?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
definitely.
If anyone hears this and you want to post in the Discord some ideas,
I want to. I think maybe if we, since we're in the realm of psychology, we could maybe do like how important animal testing has been in the psychological realm.
ooh, animal testing is good.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people talk about that one. It's kind of a unsavory topic for many people, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are against it without necessarily understanding how it's conducted or the value of it.
And also, yeah, exactly. And also how big of a role it's played in human well-being.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's the whole. So I guess one of the things that I would focus on in that kind of conversation is that a lot of people get into the medical stuff with that, and certainly it's big, and a lot of psychological medications can be tested with animals and such.
Right.
That's not largely what psychology research with animals is, and nor is it the kind I'm particularly familiar with. But even things like, doing different thought problems or different kinds of mazes or things with even just like the way dopamine works with animals is incredible stuff, and it tends to have little to no harm. And I mean, we wouldn't know much of what we know without it.
Right. Well, why don't we tackle that next week? That would be awesome.
Sure. And I'll throw it out there because I thought of it with you saying that. A good follow-up maybe for some future time is ethics in human research as well.
Yes.
People know of the prison experiment, people
Right.
know of Milgram and things like that. Those are generally seen as unethical. But I would go into any conversation with the claim that those are absolutely essential pieces of psychological research, and we can debate their modern day ethics, but I would not have it any other way that they occurred.
Right.
Because
So
the knowledge is too great.
Yeah. The ethics of clinical psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps, or at least the study.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I will. I'm making note of that.
yeah, cool, man. Well, I think we can wrap that up for today. I think we got a good hour and a half chat here. I think that this was awesome. I really enjoyed it. That little
as did I.
stint we got with Clark was fascinating.
It was.
He just left too.
Cool.
Yeah.
I guess before we close out, if you're free now and you had anything you wanted to add, Metalworks,
Yeah.
please go ahead. I don't want to
So-
shut down with Pangburn on you.
When I was hearing you talking about like the experiments with mice and stuff, have you ever heard of like Down the Rabbit Hole? He did a
You'll have to refresh me on specifically what you're referring to.
So it's a YouTube channel, and what he usually does, he'll look for stuff like interesting topics, and he'll like find like all this crazy information about it. That's why it's called Down the Rabbit Hole. You know, and big. So he did one about the mice prison experiment, and you know he found a lot of weird, crazy stuff happening in it. The mice were, I think it was like the mouse utopia experiment, and the mouse mice kind of just nuts. Straight mice turned gay. It was weird. But the problem is when some people I watch looked at it seriously, they're like, there's a lot of parts of it that don't work because there weren't used proper for control method. You know, there's a lot of flaws in the experiment because it was done so long ago.
Mhm.
And another thing I remember about mice with experimenting with mice is Brett Weinstein talked about. Do you know who Brett Weinstein is?
I
College
do.
professor. Yeah. So he talked about something weird going on with mice in the scientific community. How like there's for some reason they keep using lab mice, mostly lab bred mice, and he thinks it keeps fudging with certain scientific results and medical results. He thinks you should be probably using mice that come from the wild. He thinks there's something weird going on with it. He tried investigating it, and people kept blocking him. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. He doesn't think there's a conspiracy or anything. He just thinks it's weird.
He said people kept blocking him.
Like people, he would get a journalist to go look into it, and the journalist would just abandon them. He would ask people questions in the scientific community, and they just would give him the rodeo, the workaround. He's like, "What the hell is going on?"
You know what? Metalworks. I'll have to listen to that episode, but this is very apparent in Brett and Eric Weinstein thinking. There seems to be an element of thinking there is some kind of conspiracy.
No, like
against,
I said, he doesn't think conspiracy. He just thinks there's something weird going on.
Yeah, but like he's kind of alluding to the fact that why would the scientists just drop this, or like why is everyone so afraid to? Like Eric talks about that too with Harvard, and I think like it's like I think
his brother was a little more goofy there.
Right. So yeah.
That's a little more.
I don't know. It's weird. Every time someone brings something like that up, Metalworks, it always has the same names attached to it, either Brett or Eric.
But we don't know, and he goes in deeper than I do. So.
Right. Yeah, I know you're paraphrasing, and possibly there's some more information there, of course, but
yeah, because he did talk to like mouse experts and stuff like that, and the people who breed these mice and stuff, and they're giving him like answers and stuff to make him go like, well, that's weird. You know, it's been a while since I watched. You could probably find a clip of it on a Joe Rogan clip on YouTube. I'm pretty sure you could.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes when you ask an abstract, strange question, a scientist might say something like, well, I don't know. I've had no interest in pursuing that question, you know?
Yeah, he just wants journalists to look into it more because no one else is doing anything about it. You just think maybe there's something there, maybe there's not, you know?
Yeah.
Because he thinks since the scientific community are being inept and certain people that are being inept are trying to cover up something.
Yeah, that's
stupidity. You know?
Yeah, that's,
I don't know if it's a.
Yeah, go ahead.
It would be a cover up. But I haven't seen this video.
Trying to avoid responsibility for messing up, most likely.
But I am interested in the concept because if I understand the point correctly, and again, I'd have to look at the video because I know you're paraphrasing and all that. But you know, could there be some negative effect on research from having exclusively lab mice over many generations? Yeah, I could see there's potentially validity in that. I don't know, but it's an interesting question I hadn't thought of.
Yeah. Because I think he was talking to a woman who got their, I think she was in France, and she raised their mice outside in the wild and stuff. She raised them differently, so they're more like wild mice,
Mm.
and less like lab raised mice.
Yeah, one thing I will say is that this method of using mice to try things out is kind of the first step, because then we move to human trials, right?
Yeah, but you have to understand. You have to think of it this way: like, how many scientific trials are used with mice? They probably need lots of mice to do it.
Sure.
So it would make sense.
Yeah.
There is a business for this. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
I mean, but creating a large sample of mice is not difficult because they multiply so rapidly.
Yeah, but getting like a large supply of healthy mice to experiment on, that's probably a little different.
I mean, as far as the scientific endeavor is concerned, that's not very difficult, I don't think.
All right.
It's like the things that come up. It's like, sure, there's going to be some funding required. You're going to have to set up a mice farm and test to make sure you're using healthy specimens in your testing. You got to do your due diligence, of course. But as far as I can tell, without being an expert on mice testing, it seems to be a pretty good system that gives us the results we need in order to move on to human trials, and that system tends to work pretty damn good.
I agree, and I think he agrees too. He just thinks there's some weird mistake kind of happened, and no one's like doing anything about it or trying to like avoid it.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to see what his demonstration of that is. But my criticism of hearing conspiratorial style of thinking through the Weinsteins is part of that is me listening to them have conversations in person as well. Just how they talk about things and talk about, well, maybe that person's actually working for the government.
Well, he did say the reason why the journalist might not return to him, because the journalist told him, like, if there's a story here, I'll keep looking into it, but if there's no story here, I'm not going to bother.
Sure, and that's reasonable.
Maybe stop looking because there's no story there.
Yeah,
that Brett's concerned about nothing.
Yeah,
so like I said, I like Brett more because he's a little more. He's always trying to be more grounded in when he's posing like a conspiracy.
Yeah, look, I like both thinkers. I think Eric's very interesting too. I think they take a lot of liberties on and pull on people's conspiratorial heartstrings a lot, and I don't think that's very intellectually honest. They should just stick to the demonstrated is aspects of reality, and then if they have some new is claim to present, make sure you have a demonstration to come along with it.
I know what you mean. I just think Brett wants these kinds of concerns addressed more, because we used to have like a media to rely on that, and now they just.
But the concerns, but the concerns here might not have anything to them, and a lot of the scientific community, they want to be spending their resources and time on things that is starting off with some evidence, with some demonstration.
I think his grounds was like, well, the scientific community doesn't want to lose funding, so they try to hide things.
Yikes! Yeah.
So that could be their motive, and their motive could be just like they screwed up and they don't want to lose funding.
Look, in the realm of possibility, there could be an evil super genius super villain on top of everything.
But I think that one's more likely.
Getting information from it's the point is that in the realm of possibility, anything's possible, and so far on this I would have to look, but it sounds like the plausibility factor here is just.
I'm just going by Occam's razor. What's more likely to happen.
Sure, and you can play that game, but as and once we get to the point of actually wanting to look at something, someone's got to take on the burden of proof and make some proofs. But that's awesome. I'm gonna end the stream there, but thanks a lot, Alex, for running that today, and thanks Metalworks for showing up at the end here.
Yeah. You guys have a good night.
You too.
Yeah.
And you should jump on next week where
Yeah.
I guess we decided we're talking about clinical ethics, particularly animals. So
Yeah. It'll be good. We've kind of
Well, I
kicked
don't
it
know
off.
that much about animals. I just brought that up because it's something I knew at the top of my head. Like, oh, I remember, Brett talking about mice and how there's something he thinks there might be something weird going on there.
Well, Metal, we have a week to investigate. So
If
Awesome.
I stop being lazy and look into it,
all right, thanks guys.
I mean, I'm interested tomorrow. I think you're talking about art and stuff tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it'll be my stream tomorrow where kind of anything's on the table.
Yeah,
cool.
I'll try to pop in on that one.
Right on.
Same.
All right, thanks guys.
Right.
All right, guys, that was Pangburn Skeptic Alexander taking us through the psychological experience. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Yeah, we're going to continue with these hangouts happening every day live on Twitch for the time being. Twitch.tv/the Pangburn. If you're hearing this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and drop a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. It helps us out. And yeah, there'll be a couple exciting announcements coming up soon, and I will fill you guys in on those as they are ready to be announced. But thank you for stopping by, and as always, let art and science inspire.